And yes, we are good to go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unashamed Conversations. And I would like to start with this quote that says that compatibility in love is not an achievement, but it's more of an achievement than a precondition for love. Compatibility in love is an achievement, not a precondition for love. Welcome again. Welcome, Dr. Charles. Welcome, Mr. Unique. And of course, I wouldn't be doing this alone. I have the very delectable Joy Ogbekene. Joy, hello from the side of the planet. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the second episode of Unashamed Conversations. And I trust we're all going to have a wonderful time this evening. Thank you all for coming.
Yes. And before we go forward, I would like for Joy, let's start with you. Could you please define uh, the topic for this week? Sexual compatibility without sex. How? Let's start with, you're smiling already. The way we smile when we hear sex is interesting. Look at how you're all blushing. Oh my God.
All right, so
Oh my God.
I will go ahead to define what I think.
Okay, please be kind enough to define.
Sexual compatibility, right? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can everyone hear me? Because the network is doing the most. All right. So, sexual compatibility is the degree to which a couple is suited to each other's sexual desires, preferences, is the degree to which they align. All right. So, if we have 100%, it depends on how well a man and the woman is aligned to each other's sexual needs, sexual preferences, sexual desires. In a nutshell, that's what sexual compatibility is. How well suited a man and a woman is, how well suited they are for each other sexually. Now, the topic for this evening is how can they find out how well suited they are for each other without sex? Is it even possible? So that's what we're here to find out today.
Mm.
Mhm.
And that kind of brings me back to the question we left up during the first episode, where we had a question that a lady asked, how unholy, and that was pretty much shocking because it was a sincere question that she really wanted to know. And she also asked, if you're married without having sex and later discover that your partner has weak erection or erectile dysfunction, what do you do? Then lastly, another question popped up. Is masturbation a sin? And if it is a way to please, okay, is masturbation a sin if it is a way to please your partner? So before we delve into that and take reactions from the audience, I'll first of all introduce our guests, Chukwemeka, Dan, Philip. But to just confirm, there's not one of the bishops that did some magic. My Lord Bishop, say hi to the people.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, good
Yeah.
evening.
Uh,
Welcome second episode of Unashamed Conversation. I missed the first one due to my work schedule. Uh, from the previous episode coming down to today's episode, Joy asked the question. Okay, Ekine asked the question. If you noticed when you're already in marriage that your spouse has erectile dysfunction, what do you do? There is no, it depends on how you found out. Was it discussed before marriage? Was there any discussion in that line before marriage, or was it a case of deceit? There are different approaches one can take from this, but erectile dysfunction is also treatable. That is one. One can go through those means to see that you try to resolve it, while also exploring other avenues, which will lead to the second question: is masturbation a sin? Or which could also lead to questions of is sex toy in marriage also a sin? But for now, just touching on that first question, I would suggest, personally for me, it would be a case of you love this person. Marriage is not all about sex. For me, personally, it's not all about sex. There are other ingredients, in a marriage. Is there communication? Is there that willingness to be vulnerable to your spouse, to be naked to your spouse, opening up to your spouse? Is it there? Can the both of you work together to see that you resolve any crisis, that would come up? Because if you're talking about erectile dysfunction, okay, you found out, what of couples that get married and later on, maybe there's an accident or something? You have to deal with it. You're married, and marriage is all about love, it's all about sacrifice. You have to be willing to sacrifice your own desires, your own pleasure for your spouse. I know it might not be the conventional definition of love right now, because everybody is asking for what is mine. But the Bible definition of love, he said, love does not ask for what is hers. You try to please your spouse, then your spouse in turn will try to please you. That is where it's now mutual. But on everybody's part, you have to do your own part by sacrificing for your spouse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chukwemeka. Let's hear from a very well-respected Dr. Adiogu. Dr. Adiogu, you are the professional here. What do you think? 3 questions on the table before we move into sexual compatibility. Dr. Charles, are you there? Hello, Dr. Charles. It's like Dr. Charles is not here.
Hello,
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Okay now. Yeah, he was on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you
Can you
now.
hear me now?
Yes, we
Okay,
can hear you, Dr.
sorry
Charles.
for that little break. All right.
Loud and clear. I can hear you.
Okay, like the first speaker has just said, he was quite articulate about his explanation, and it's a question of, was this a premeditated thing? Was it a thing of deceit? Did you tell your spouse prior to marriage? Because when two people, go before God and men saying that they are planning to spend the rest of their lives together, there should be mutual connection between them, and they should be as open to each other as possible. And nothing should be hidden, especially something that is of paramount importance in marriage, such as sex. So absolutely, if it's something that has been foretold, then it's now on the part of the wife to be understanding and to know that, okay, I'm marrying this person with this predicament, and I'm ready to face the consequences, for better, for worse. Because like he rightly mentioned, marriage is not all about sex, just like marriage is not all about having children. It's for companionship, first and foremost. So it is for the two parties to be able to live, in love and harmony, and every other thing is an addition. Though sex is the crucial aspect of it, but if one of them has an impediment that was clearly stated before marriage and the other spouse was willing to still move ahead with the marriage, then it shouldn't become an issue for them. But if it's something that came up much later in marriage, like an accident or some kind of medical condition that resulted in sexual dysfunction on the part of the man, then it becomes a different ball game, because it is now left for the woman to be as understanding as possible, because she would realize that this man was not this way when they first got married, and everything was fine before an unfortunate incident, which is beyond anybody's control, happened. So it's very essential that before people get into marriage, there's a mutual understanding and there's a strong bond and connection between them that tells them, look, this goes beyond now. It goes straight into the future, and we're ready to weather any condition at all. We're going to go through thick and thin. Whatever we find there, when we unwrap our gifts, whatever we see there in the gift of our marriage is what we would accept. And the same applies to couples who have inability to conceive, because some of them will go to the hospital, run different tests, and you find out that they are both fine, but yet they cannot conceive. So it's now their love and the level of connection they've had or built, before the marriage that will help them stand the test of time. And for the second question on masturbation, we're talking to a large audience. When you're talking about this, it comes, your moral aspect comes up, moral background, your religious inclination comes to play to know whether masturbation is actually a sin or not. Well, for some people, they will tell you if you are masturbating, you're actually fantasizing. You're actually thinking about something. You actually have some fantasies that you are dreaming about while you are carrying out the act. And that in itself does not sound pure. So for you to actually be masturbating and having pictures or ideas in your head about somebody else, who is not your spouse most times, or you're watching something that is visually stimulating, then it now calls to mind the moral standards of the person who is actually masturbating. And like we know, masturbating is very addictive. It's something that a lot of people, even while in marriage, find very difficult to break out from. And masturbation in itself, for men, can be a source of erectile dysfunction. I think that would be a topic for another day, because so much of masturbation goes with pornography, most likely, which in turn causes hyperstimulation of the man's mind, and he may not be able to replicate the level of excitement he gets from this thing in real life. And then there will be unrealistic expectations on the spouse, and this causes a lot of problems in marriage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Diogun. Thank you so much. Before I go ahead to ask my question, I want to welcome everyone who is joining in. Thank you all for coming, and we trust you're going to have a wonderful and enlightening time with us here today. So, Doctor, I have some questions there. You see, it's all well and good when we say these things, but let's go to the nitty-gritty. So let's say I have somebody that I plan to get married to, and I do not want to have premarital sex, but I am concerned about how my compatibility with him. How can I find out how compatible we are sexually? Are there tests that can be done? How can I find out how compatible we are sexually without indulging in sex if I don't want to? Is there a way to go about this? But this is the crux of the question. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Like you rightly, brilliantly defined sexual compatibility, I do not have a word to add to the previous definition you gave, because that was quite apt. So basically, the sexual compatibility between a man or a woman starts with the normal anatomy. The normal anatomy of the male and female genitals, nature has made it compatible in the first instance. But the kind of compatibility we're now referring to is the kind of mutual bond or connection that, both parties have towards each other. Their preferences, their mutual attraction to each other, and how the bond, is what we are talking about here. People, differ in their reasons for not wanting to indulge in premarital sex. Some people for religious reasons, some people because of their moral upbringing. Some people, they just say, oh, I'm going to keep myself for my partner, and I respect sex. I think sex is sacred, regardless of what religion they practice. So basically, different people have different motives for avoiding premarital sex. But how do we now know that there is a kind of attraction, or what we call chemistry, or a bonding between these intending parties, who intend to get married? Basically, there are some things you can watch out for, and they can range from your conversations, your intimate conversations with them. what are the kind of conversations you have? Can you discuss your desires and discuss in detail what your fantasies are? What are the things you enjoy? What are the things you like? You can do all this. And, to a large extent is to how open the other party is to the conversation. Like we know, nobody can truly know another human being or another individual entirely. It's quite difficult for you to be able to say, okay, this is how an individual is. You can only try as much as possible to get to know the person better, spend more time with the person through conversations, through interactions. Then you get to know what their likes are and their dislikes. But it's very key that the degree of openness, honesty, and integrity of the parties determines to a large extent how you can assess sexual compatibility. And also the ease of disclosure of all this vital information is influenced by the background of the person, influenced by childhood experiences, and influenced by the sexual expectations of the parties involved. So like I said, intimate conversations, they can discuss their desires, they can discuss their fantasies and their boundaries. Some people can say, the conventional sex, yes, I like it, but when it comes to oral sex, I do not want to have anything to do with that. So you know the boundaries of your partner from the beginning, and then you know what they can tolerate and what they will not accept. Then you can also try the non-sensual touches. You can touch because it's part of being social to touch somebody around you. So you can touch your loved one. You can touch your intended spouse to be. Non-sexual touches. So you can explore holding hands together, public display of affection, cuddling, or massage. All those things will let you know how they react to certain stimuli, because you would not want to touch somebody and you get a different reaction that, is this person not attracted to me? Or is this person comfortable with me being around? Is this person comfortable with me being in their space? All these things can let you know how compatible you are. Then it's also essential that we talk about emotional intimacy. So physical intimacy is different from emotional intimacy. Emotions have to deal with
how that same property is going to benefit his children. So we're talking about 3 generations already. His parents, his family, and his children. So that's how powerful real estate can be. Because it's a fixed asset, it's not going anywhere. It's there for generation. You own a piece of land, it is yours forever. Okay, back to my point. Now, where do you start?
Hello?
Yeah, please go on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't quite get, the last conversation. I thought somebody asked a question.
No.
Was that
I had to mute the person. It was a distraction.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so I was talking of emotional intimacy, the degree of bonding in terms of feelings, in terms of the kind of attraction or chemistry between the two parties. Can they share how vulnerable they are? Can they be vulnerable with each other? Can they express their fears and their anxieties and their desires with each other? That helps people bond on an emotional level, which is quite important. Then another important compatibility test is intellectual connection. It is very important that people connect intellectually, because the rate at which, or the level at which somebody is thinking must match level of their spouse or their intending their spouse to be. It's very necessary for them to be able to see things from the same perspective, though they should not be always agreeable all the time, but at least they should be able to see from this and be on the same page and see things in the same direction, so that at least they can agree on most things. And when they do disagree, they can even find common grounds on which they can break even and make a rational decision about any life issue or life situation. So intellectual connection too is key. That is why it's always advisable that people get to know each other well during the time of courtship. They get to know each other intimately, not necessarily sexually, but bond so well that you can almost predict how the other person would react under certain circumstances, because you have seen them, operate, you have seen them behave in different circumstances and in different scenarios. You've seen them angry, you've seen them happy, you've seen them sad, you've seen them depressed, you've seen them tired and exhausted, and then you can actually know them and know what they can do and what they cannot. It's also important for us to know about creative expression. This tells you what creativity is in your spouse or the person you intend to get married to. Is this person good with the arts or with music? Because the way they express themselves in the arts or music or poetry or whatever talents they have or whatever creative ability they have can also let you know if you are compatible with them, because the things that they do or enjoy doing, even their hobbies, can let you know whether you are compatible with them or not. Then it's also essential to talk about trust building activities. What are the things that you can engage in that would build trust? When there's a conversation that goes on behind the other person's back, and the other person know that they have your back all the time, can they know that there are certain things that will not be discussed behind their back? Do they know that the secrets they leave in your hands are safe? And everything they tell you is confidential and is truly confidential in every sense of the word. All those are important ways to know if you're truly compatible with another person. And then it's also essential to talk about shared desires. So all the things you discuss and explore together, the fantasies, the things they look up to, their expectations, even about sex too. You try to know, what are the things this person is looking forward to? What are the things that this person is expecting? Through conversations, through heart-to-heart connection, all this can come to limelight, and you can tell if there is a true compatibility between the two of you. Then you also have non-sexual intimacy.
Thank you.
Spending private time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doc.
Yeah.
Hello, Doc. We're still going to come back to you because looks like it's a lot of things that you are unpacking, and it will be nice to have other participants, to put in to hear what they think about,
yeah, sure. That's fine.
some of the things you have said. But then I saw Mr. Unique raising up his hands. Mr. Unique, you wanted to say something. So everyone in the audience, please, if you have questions you'd like to ask, if you have contributions, just raise your digital hand and I will see it from here, and then we'll surely give you an opportunity to say something. Remember that we're also live on YouTube, so if you are watching on YouTube, you can always send us a message. If you are not able to join the Zoom conversation, the WhatsApp number to send your message to is 08060770549. I'll take it again, 08060770549. Mr. Unique, if you are ready for your contribution, you have the floor.
Yeah, I was just trying to draw Dr. Charles' attention to the question posed by Joy. Is there a test that can be done, to check sexual compatibility before marriage, like checking for cases of erectile dysfunction, or checking for if a lady can be pregnant, or checking for performance-related, how will I put it now? If a man can perform optimally on the bed, or if a woman can perform as well optimally on the bed. I think that was the question she posed. But also, while Dr. Charles was talking, he also mentioned about masturbation being a cause of erectile dysfunction, probably too much of it. But from the research done, I think that's still a myth. It's not been a proven fact. Also, from research done too, masturbation has so many health benefits. I know the issue of masturbation has been greatly stigmatized. But even if it comes to religion now, and people say masturbation is a sin, but there is nowhere in the Bible where masturbation is called a sin. That is clear. And we are supposed to be silent where the Bible is silent, loud where it's loud.
Okay.
If we're talking about masturbation, we'll talk about, is it appropriate or is it inappropriate? He talked about having picture in your head while masturbating. He said, except if that's your spouse. Yes, I agree with that. If you have maybe your spouse in your head, even if you masturbate, for me, I don't think it's inappropriate. For me, if there is a case in the family, in the marriage, the two can agree on working it out. If you feel you would need, even in medical, when I was doing my research, they say to treat certain sexual consent illnesses, sometimes they even prefer masturbation as part of the cure. So for me, I don't think we should stigmatize masturbation because it has its own benefits, but it could be inappropriate in some cases. But in some cases, it's not totally bad. That is my own opinion and contribution. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Unique. I'm going to keep those comments in the cooler, and then we're going to take more reactions. So everyone in the audience, if you have any question you'd like to ask, please go ahead and then ask your question. What do you think? Do you think masturbation is a sin? Do you think it is not a sin? Do you think it's something that should be encouraged? Do you think it is something that should be discouraged? So yeah, if you have anything to say, let's see your hands up. I want to welcome those that just came in. I've seen a lot of beautiful people. I see Mr. Samala Ajibola. I see, oh, His Excellency is here. His Excellency, uh, yeah, His Excellency, Mr. Chicken Sofo. You're welcome, sir. I see Dr. Idu, a lot of people. Yeah. Oh, Pretty Tari is here. Yeah, a lot of people that I can't call all the names, but then if you have questions and comments, let's see your hands. Dr. Charles, if you are back, what do you think? I think that the topic of masturbation seems to be on the focal lens right now. Do you think masturbation is a sin? And given the research that Mr. Unique pointed out, do you agree with him, or do you think he's not properly related his research results? What do you think?
Okay, thank you. Masturbation, like we know, is like the manual stimulation of the genitals to produce sexual pleasure. And the process is not as simple as it seems, because for you to have an erection without a partner being there, for you to stimulate yourself and then get to the point of climaxing entails that you have a visual imagination or fantasy, that excites you, or you have something that is visually stimulating you to reach the point of climaxing. So basically, it's a question that has to do with an individual's moral upbringing, and what you believe to be right or wrong, because not everybody is religious. Some people who are not necessarily affiliated with any particular religion may not understand what sin is, because if you asked, is it a sin? So what is sin? Sin is an offense, against God, or a break in the law of God. So when you are bringing sin into the equation, then it is already becoming something of a religious topic. So for some people that don't believe in God, or who are not religious people, they do not understand what the law of God is to start with. So they don't even know that there's any form of commandment to be obeyed. So when there's no law, there's no sin. So basically, in that sense, it is not going to be a sin to everybody. It's only a sin to somebody who fundamentally believes in God, or who has faith in God. That is who we can now start saying, okay, it may be a sin for. And if you say that you can mentally stimulate yourself or manually stimulate yourself to a point of climaxing without necessarily fantasizing, that is just based on you manually stimulating yourself, well, you are the only one that can tell that, because whoever you are telling that cannot be proven that you are not fantasizing on anything. But if you're a person of faith, according to your own faith, so that determines whether it is a sin or not. So depending on what your morals are, depending on what your religious inclinations or what your religion preaches, then it can be a sin. If your religion says you lusting after somebody, fantasizing after somebody is regarded as wrong or immoral, then to you it is a sin. It can be classified as a sin. So for me, I would say that question, applies differently to different people.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I see Pretty Tari's hand is up. Pretty Tari, you have the floor. Let's hear you.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Loud and clear, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, we
so
can.
the question here is, yes, we understand we're Christians, and from my own experience, I'll ask this to the medical practitioners. Christians that go to the hospital and they're asked for their semen and they're asked to masturbate to, take their semen into the tube or whatever for test and all. Is that not you making them sin, since we're trying to say it's a sin? Because I don't know how to best explain this whole thing. Because I remember that was the time me and my ex went to the hospital for checkup, and he was asked to masturbate to pour in the semen into the container because we're going for general checks for church. So he's a religious person, or he's a church person, he's a Christian, but he was meant to do that by the doctor. Is that a sin?
From what I said the Bible never ever said masturbation is a sin. So even people that are trying to stigmatize masturbation, they don't give you any quotation to prove that masturbation is a sin. From research, there are so many benefits of masturbation. Like you rightly said, when you want to even do IVF, they ask the man to masturbate. These things are no sin. If you're masturbating and you have your spouse, probably you have couples that stay far apart 5 years, and they don't see 2 years, 3 years. You expect them to sleep with another person, or you expect them to, which one is better, to masturbate and get themselves aroused and they still keep to themselves? Which would you support? The Bible is silent on masturbation. People that would want to bring in masturbation into the Bible, they will tell you Jesus Christ said, he who lust after a woman, lust after a woman. But if you lust after your wife, it's no sin. If you lust after your husband, it's no sin. So there is nothing on masturbation in the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. It's just probably beliefs that have been passed down for centuries of years, and that you've believed a lie for 20 years doesn't make it the truth. So it just depends on the picture you have in your head. If you have the picture of another person that is not your spouse, it now becomes inappropriate. But if it's your spouse picture that you have in your head while engaging in that, then I don't think it's inappropriate. That's my own contribution.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Unique, for your own position on the issue of masturbation. And it's very important that we talk about these things and see what the opinions people have. And then ultimately, we look at the different angles to it, and then look at, most importantly, what the scripture says. And then from what the conversation so far, two things have been mentioned here. One is the physical stimulation. The two is the erotic part of what people imagine when they are in the act. And three is the how holy is it, how unclean is it a thought. I think these are the three major things that have come to play. But then we'll still come back to that, and let's still take more questions on compatibility, sexual compatibility. Okay, I see David Jones. David Jones, I'll come back to you in a minute. I've seen your hands. If you also, other people that have questions, please, let's see your hands. But then this is something I would want to ask is, Dr. Charles, you have given a lot of medical background, to sexual compatibility. And there's some head lion. If I hold up a paper or a poster that has a lion drawn on it, now lion, if I ask you what's that, you say it's a lion. But then, can that lion bite? No, he can't bite. If you see your reaction towards the poster of a lion will be very, very different from a real life lion. So hold out thoughts as regards sexual compatibility, how, and we'll come back to you after we take David Jones' question. David Jones, David Jones, you have the floor. Let's hear you, please. David Jones, are you there?
Hi, good evening, guys.
Yeah,
Hi,
hello,
David.
David Jones.
Good evening. Yeah, just a very, very short, brief question. Talking about, a lady came to talk about when you want to do your test and they ask you to masturbate. And the other, sorry, I didn't get your names, but the other one who talked about masturbation being a sin, and depending on who you are imagining when masturbating. So in this lady's case, she went to do a test, a general test, with her husband to be. They are not yet married. You understand? And this guy is asked to masturbate to get out the sperm. Who does he picture when he's doing that? And is he a sin? That's my question.
Okay. We will have to clarify from Pretty Tsari because she didn't specify if it was her husband or it wasn't her husband. Pretty Tsari.
She did, actually.
She did?
Yes. She said general test
okay.
from church also.
Okay.
It was her husband to be.
Okay.
And even if that wasn't her case, I'm painting that scenario right now. Your husband to be, you're not married yet. You know what I mean? And you're going to do a general test. So who do you picture at that point?
Interesting question. Interesting question. Joe, you have been quiet. Do you have anything to say? What do you have to say to that question?
So the
or
question,
do we go back to Dr. Charles?
Yeah, I really want to hear what everyone else has to say. Yeah, I really want to hear what everyone else has to say because, like David said, who do you picture at that moment? So I want to hear what the gentlemen in the house have to say.
That's a very tough question.
I'm sorry, guys. Sorry. That question is directed to that brother, that one who says it's a sin.
You mean Dr. Charles? Is it Dr. Charles
Dr. Adeogun?
Yeah, Dr. Adeogun.
Oh, thank you.
No, Dr. Charles. Dr. Charles.
Okay,
is it Dr. Charles?
Yeah, Dr. Charles, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Well, like I said people are different. People have different upbringing, they have different faiths, different beliefs. I said masturbation is a sin to who his religion or his religious or his faith declares such acts as sin. That was why I tried to define what sin was at the beginning. That sin is an offense not to man, not against man, but against God. And once you bring God into the picture, then faith is into the picture because nobody has seen God at any time. So you only accept that there is a God by faith. So that means it's now a question of faith. So if the person is a person of faith, depending on what his faith teaches, it becomes a sin to him as an individual. So that definition, so what we are saying now is that the answer is not generic. To different people, depending on how they were raised, depending on their personal faith and religious inclination, what is to them. So it's not a person of faith, for instance. So he may not be, he's just there to get at that moment be thinking, oh, is this a sin? Is it wrong for me to do this? Because I am sure the tube to put the semen into, he must have made some payments, he must have had some consultations with the doctor and all that. So basically, to him at that time, he has already made up his mind on what he wants to do. So it's not a question of faith in this particular scenario. So judging this particular kind of question that you asked, it has different dimensions to it, because it determines, just like let's paint another scenario not relating to masturbation. For instance, lying. Everybody knows telling what is not the truth or being dishonest is wrong or is immoral. But when a person gets into a circumstance that he knows that it's a matter of life and death, he may be killed, he may lose his job, there's something, that is at stake that is so important. At that point in time, the human factor or the flesh would overtake or override what is spiritual inclination or what is faith teaches. That is just being human. So if we're trying to be generic and saying, because Christianity preaches this or one religion preaches this, says it is a sin to tell lies, then when a gun is put to your head, you still tell the truth. That would just be us, We are not saying it cannot happen, but it will be in the minority. We know we have martyrs, people that die for their faith and all that. But that is a special kind of empowerment that comes to them to be able to stand for the truth, even in the face of death. It is unnatural. So for people on the call that are Christians, they can recall the story of Daniel that was willing to be thrown into the lion's den, not even knowing if God was going to save him or not. Because I'm sure if he were in his mind, he was probably thinking he was going to die, because God didn't promise him that, look, as they throw you inside, I will save you. He was uncertain of what the outcome was going to be. Same for the 3 Hebrew children that were thrown into the burning furnace. So when it comes to faith, is either you entirely believe in what you believe in and stand by it, of which it is not completely natural for humans in their own natural state to be absolutely committed 100% to it, unless they are spiritually empowered to do so. So in this case, I would say it depends on how firmly the person is committed to his faith and what his faith truly teaches. So I am not saying that masturbation is a sin for everybody. I am a Christian. My faith is different from other people's faith. So in my own faith, it may be wrong, but I can't speak for everybody. So it would be wrong for us to have a generic answer and speak for everybody in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. Done well. And while we go on, I'd like us for us to hold these thoughts in our mind. Now we're talking about the Christian position. Before I will give my own take, I just like to read a couple of verses from the Bible to give us perspective on the issue of masturbation, because it seems to have very, very imposing, what's the right word? Very, very key. It's quite key in this conversation. So let's Matthew 6:33 says, is that it? Yeah. No, 1 Corinthians 6:18 says, flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a person commits are outside the body, but whoever sins sexually sins against their own. We are trying to get some good clarity on that. I'd also want to read another verse in the scripture so that we can have these conversations and help people, navigate some of these issues that are real life issues. And that's what the Unashamed Conversation is all about, so that people have clarity on where they stand. And then I would like to read 1 Thessalonians. Yes, I'd like to read 1 Thessalonians 4:3-4. It says, it is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control your own body in a way that is holy and honorable. I don't know if other people have any explanations for this particular verse. That's First Thessalonians. I read it again. It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control your own bodies in a way that is holy and honorable. Now, I see something here. It's a matter of self-control. Now, question, does masturbation, except for medical purposes, where we will still have to discuss that one, if it's for self-pleasure, now, what are you playing to? Are you playing to self-pleasure? Are you playing to just enjoying yourself, which is what it basically is? If you are doing that for self-pleasure, then how much of not a sin is it? That's one. And does it not show a lack of self-control, from the part of the person that is such? Now, the question, two things here is self-control, one, and also self-pleasure. I don't know who would want to give it a thought. Joy, you want to give your opinions on that regarding this verse, talking about self-pleasure and self-control. What do you think?
Well, self-pleasure, self-control. For me, I will stand on the part of self-control, really, because at the end of the day, what is the purpose for which you must? And we've also seen cases where people in marriage masturbate. Now, I want to believe that in marriage you have access to sex. So of what use is the masturbation? I'm going to ask this like a 5-year-old, right? Of what is the masturbation for? That is where I believe that at the end of the day, masturbation, I just feel some type of way about it, because if we're saying, okay, as singles, now I'm going to speak for the single people, we're saying, okay, we do not have access to sex, so this is how we help ourselves. What about the married people who indulge in it? Of what use is it? Then I have a question for Dr. Charles, maybe later on. Let's say we're still talking about sexual compatibility here. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is for you, Doctor. For sexual compatibility now, let's say a man and a woman get into a marriage and they discover that one person's libido is way higher than what the other person can accommodate. Let's say maybe the man's libido is way higher or the woman's libido is way higher. Are there medical ways to correct this? Is there anything that can be done? Because this is where you have issues of people saying they can't cope. They can't cope. And so is there a medical way to address this? Because this is also part of sexual compatibility. When somebody's libido is way higher than what the other person can accommodate. And that's where you have people saying stuff like, is it food? You want to kill me? So how can, are there medical ways to address this?
Well, let's look at it from this point. People had their individual lives before they met each other and decided to get married and become a couple. So absolutely, they've had different experiences they grew up with. And, we cannot underestimate the fact that, experiences people had in their childhood or in their growing years, still plays out, in adulthood, even when they get married. Just like you said, what is the essence of masturbating when you have access to sex? That is where habits come to play. That is where addiction comes to play. Things that you've always been doing, they die hard. So the fact that you're married doesn't change, who you have been over the years fundamentally, So basically, you having a situation where somebody's libido is higher than that of the other, is a real life scenario that plays out a lot, and those kind of couples would benefit from counseling, and possibly psychotherapy in some cases, or seeing a sex therapist who would actually find out if there's any reason why the other person, has lower libido, or is there anything that is making the other person have a higher than normal, level of libido. And like we rightly know, a lot of people, because of some of the habits they still indulge in, even in marriage, puts them in a situation whereby, they have some expectations they want to play out in their own private lives too, or in their marriage, and they expect that their spouses live up to those expectations. For instance, you can have a man who is actively into pornography, who, is now watching different types of pornography, because there are different, dynamics to these things. There are different pornographies that attract certain men. They watch certain women in some kind of positions. They watch certain situations. They watch certain, all different. Pornography too has different segments to it. So all these things are things that play in the mind of the man, and he's trying to replicate that in his wife. And then he now thinks, oh, because I watch these things and I see some men lasting for so long, I see some men having sex, back to back. He wants to actually play it out, which in reality may not be, realistic. And then he may be engaging in taking some enhancers or sex enhancement medications. And, this will further raise his desire for sex. And, he calls his wife for sex all the time. And the woman is thinking this is excessive. And we don't want to go into the areas of substance abuse too, that may play a huge role in people seemingly having higher libidos than their spouses. So the best thing for these people is to see a sex therapist or to see a clinical psychologist who would probably interview this couple individually first, and then as a unit, as a couple together, so that whatever the findings are, they are able to now advise them from a place of understanding and knowledge, trying to identify where the problem lies and trying to address the specific needs of each person. And, solutions come to play, readily in such a situation than you thinking, they can just get by with it. Because in marriage, just like any other relationship, if somebody is begrudging the other person, or if somebody has reservations about the other person and it is not addressed in a timely fashion, it has some very, very deleterious effects or detrimental effects, on the quality of that relationship.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. You have done amazing. Mezi, Michael, you have a question. Let's hear you, please. Hello, Mezi, Michael.
Good evening. It's Michael. Good evening, everyone.
Michael, good evening. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Can you all hear me, please?
Yeah.
Hey,
Loud and clear.
Good evening.
Hi, Joy. How you doing?
Hi.
Okay, I've almost forgotten what I wanted to ask, because I initially had wanted to ask where our conversations tonight, which slant will be taken. Like, is it going to be purely a Christian-based conversation, or is it going to be general? But certainly it's taking the Christian slant right now. So I want to ask Ekine, based off of the chapters you read now, how does those chapters apply to someone who is not a Christian? For context, I'm a child of God. I'm not ashamed to say it anywhere. And by the mercies of God, I've been on both sides of this coin, on the left side, on the right side. I am very qualified to talk about what happens here on this other side, and what happens on the other side that Dr. Charles is talking about, and what happens on where Mr. Unique is talking about, and what happens on where Dr. Charles is talking about. But based off, my first question is, based off of what you read, the chapters you read from the Bible now, how do they apply to somebody who is not a child of God? What has his faith got to do with it? Because as far as he's concerned, he does not believe in your faith. He does not believe in what you are reading. Of course, where there's no law, there's no sin, according to what you said earlier. How do they apply? Now, before I now find time to try to maybe chip in again, because I actually came in here with a mindset of listen. This is my first time Joy invited me. A matter of listening and learning. But this conversation is getting really, really interesting. And I think I have both a confession and a testimony on this platform later in the day. Let's go on, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Messi Michaels. Thank you, Messi Michaels. Now, let me address your question. First of all, that is this a Christian program or not a Christian program? Now we deal with real life issues. The issues that Christians deal with in real world basically are the same question issues that every other person deals with. Now the only difference is by which book that do they play by? Do they play by the rule book of Christians, or do they play by the rule book of non-Christians? Now, to all intents and purposes, Unashamed Conversations has the agenda of treating real life issues from the Christian perspective with the mindset that it is globally applicable. Take, for instance, Christians have issues with their, so they have issues with masturbation, just like there are Muslims too that have issues with masturbation, Hindus, Buddhists, and largely the effects are both ways. You know, there are both ways. You see, uh, there are Christians that have erectile dysfunctions, just like there are Muslims or Buddhists or any other religious people that have uh, erectile dysfunctions. And then these conversations help us to navigate our lives. And you know, it's not a matter of compartmentalizing our lives and say, okay, we have Christian lives or we have a non-Christian life. So for Unashamed Conversations, our final authority is the Bible, is the Word of God. But then it is open to everyone because we are treating real life issues. It's just like saying that when you go to the mosques and you have the imams give their sermons that there's nothing to learn. Oh no, there will be something to learn. There will always be take home. Just like when you come to the church, to even if you're not a Christian, there will always be a take home for you. But on our shame conversations, no apologies about that. Our final authority is the word of God, and that's why we must always put it forward and to see how Christians and non-Christians relate to these issues in light of Bible teachings, and even not in light of Bible teachings, but for Unashamed Conversations, our final authority is what the Bible says. And thank you for that question and observation that this is really getting interesting. So I have a question, and then I would like to direct that to Mr. Unique. Mr. Unique, in the light of this I read, three things come to light. One, self-pleasure. Two, self-control. Three, addiction. Addiction. Uh, how do you make sense of these three areas that are affected by masturbation? We have all agreed from all research so far, we have agreed that it could be addictive. It also reveals that it's a lack of self-control because you want sexual pleasure, but you cannot have it because your partner is not available if you have a partner. And if you don't have a partner, let me borrow Joy's words, he said you just want to help yourself. So it's a matter of you getting the same pleasure that you would have got if you had a partner, but now you don't have, so you're having it on your own. Then if you are masturbating, what kind of have? Let me add a fourth twist to it. What kind of pictures are you likely, to have in your mind if you are not married? Will you be thinking of going to school while masturbating, or will you be thinking of watching a porn site, a porn video, or all those related things? Mr. Unique, you have the floor.
Okay. From the beginning, when we talked about masturbation, we're relating it to couples. That is one. And why would a couple engage in it? Then the back of the whole discussion centered on sexual compatibility. So, and where masturbation come in is like, can masturbation be like a stopgap? Probably for a woman now, your husband cannot satisfy you. Is it better to go outside or is it better to masturbate? Right? Then that was where we now started talking about, is it sin or no sin? If you're staying away from your spouse, right? Maybe your spouse is staying in US and you're in Nigeria, 3 years people are not seeing. Is it better to stay long without engaging, or you can engage in self-pleasure, the both of you, probably video sex? Is it a sin or not a sin? Then now the issue of self-control. For me, even if you look at Paul's advice from 1 Corinthians 7, 1-9, one could even summarize when you go to the last chapter, where last verse in 9, where it says it is better to marry than to bond with passion. I was talking about lack of self-control in quote. If you cannot hold yourself and stay single, it's better you do well and get married. God created sex, and we should engage in it, but in marriage. So I don't think going into masturbation is an act of lack of self-control. For couples agreeing to masturbate, it's not, for me, it's not a result of lack of self-control. Sometimes even women could have low libido. The man has higher libido. Is it better you people quarrel all the time? Or is it better for the other person to engage in masturbation as a stopgap rather than disturbing the spouse? For me, I think these are questions, individually, as married couples, they need to answer and select what works best for them. But the case of addiction, I don't think as a Christian, we really, really should get addicted into anything. Too much of everything is bad. Too much of salt is bad. Too much of sugar is bad. So as well, I believe too much of masturbation could be bad. But for masturbation being a sin, I said, no, the Bible never mentioned masturbation as a sin. It's just that it's been stigmatized for years. And I also said there's also medical benefits to masturbation. And there are also other benefits to masturbation. 1, it can help marriages. 2, it reduces stress. 3, it helps sleep very well by reducing, increasing what medical people call exotocin or what to the system. Helps for sleeping and all that.
Oxytocin.
Yes. So it should not be stigmatized. It just depends on the approach. Then who should you be having in your mind? Definitely your spouse. Not some other picture.
Mr. Unique.
Or your spouse.
I want to ask, does masturbation help to build intimacy in marriage? Since you're talking in the context of marriage now, does masturbation help build intimacy in marriage?
If you masturbate rather than going out to sleep with another person, what does it help?
Oh, okay, Mr. Unique.
So the question is now, for married couples, do you prefer your spouse going out cheating, or you prefer your spouse masturbating whenever they bond with passion?
Okay, Mr. Unique, a follow-up question to your comparison, because you, for some reason, you didn't answer Joy's question, because she asked you, does masturbation build intimacy? That's a question you responded with a comparison. So my follow-up question
No, I
would
indirectly
be
answered.
that, are you saying, sorry?
I indirectly answered.
You said something, Mr.
I
Unique.
believe if you engage in masturbation too much, I believe you might not have, most times you might not have the desire for your spouse that much. You might want to engage more in masturbation. But if it's done moderately, I don't think you would lose interest in your spouse, right?
Okay.
But for me, while I say it's not a sin, is most times when we have to put ourselves in the picture of most spouse, we have so many people that are not staying together with their spouse. They don't get to see their spouse 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And we push this narrative that masturbation is a sin, right? At some point, man, you hear some ladies, they tell you, why I go masturbate? No be men full everywhere, right? So that means because of the stigmatization of masturbation, people are openly preferring to sleep with some other person than to engage in masturbation.
Okay.
For me,
So, Mr. Unique, okay,
yeah,
go on, finish.
yeah. For me, it's a case of, is it a sin or is inappropriate? For me, I have said it's not a sin. It's not in the Bible that it's a sin. So we are silent where the Bible says we are silent, where the Bible is silent, and loud where the Bible is loud. No mention of masturbation in the Bible. Is it appropriate or inappropriate? It depends on the usage. That's what I said.
Oh, okay. Before we take David Jones' question, David Jones, David, I'd like to point out something from your response, Mr. Unique. You seem to be making comparison where A is not available, then B is an option, and I don't think that's the question here. The question is not a matter of is cheating better than masturbation, or is masturbation better than cheating? I think the question here is if it is good, if it depicts self-control, if it shows that yes, you you don't have erotic thoughts, if it's a matter of self-pleasure. I think those are the core questions here. But then, of course, you are at liberty
Okay.
to answer whichever way
Okay.
you
In 30
choose.
seconds.
But then I will show this question, and
In
I
30
hope that
seconds.
a lot of us will jump into that conversation and give us an answer. So here's a hypothetical question, Mr. Unique. If you walk into what will be a man's reaction if he walks into his room and sees his spouse masturbating? What would be that reaction? You walk into the house, into your room, and you find your wife or your spouse masturbating. What would be that reaction?
I would feel
it will be. You don't have to answer now. Hold on, Mr. Unique. I can see. Yeah, your guns blazing. Let's just let that questions to you. It's not just for you. It's not directed to you only. It's directed to everyone. What would be their reaction? If you walk into the room and you are there, you are in the house, and rather than your spouse coming to you for sex, they are rather masturbating. Maybe because they feel that you are not matching their level of energy, or maybe they just find it more pleasurable, or even if it's a habit. What would be the reaction? But first, let's take David Jones. David Jones, up. Let's hear what you have to say, please.
Interesting conversation, trust me. Three things. First, let's talk about if masturbation promotes intimacy. We know this, talking about two adults here. There are some people who, the couple, they just like masturbating. They can actually be in the house together and masturbate together. Yes, it happens. So if they are both in agreement, then it promotes intimacy. Like what Dr. Charles was talking about earlier on, talking about, that people have different ways. I don't know how he put it, that to spice up their, sexual, life or desires or fantasies. If two of you are actually compatible from the beginning, I know that two of you are crazy, I can do crazy stuff, then that masturbation will promote intimacy. If the other party, actually, understands and accepts it, so it still boils down to, two of you being on the same table. That's one. Then talking about walking into a room and seeing your spouse masturbating, it's the same answer I gave from the beginning. There are some couple that are crazy, and they understand these things. I beg, leave me, I beg, they will go masturbate. It they happen. So, like we said, we're talking about generally, not just religious or this thing. There are different kind of people in this world. And if two people are compatible in the first place and these things work well with them, then it's going to promote intimacy, if you know what I mean. There are some guys or some ladies that if they get married to somebody who doesn't masturbate or do crazy things, they may not even last long. relationship. You know, so let's not be one-sided about this thing, or try to be too decent, you know, about it, because some people are actually crazy. These are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David Jones, for your contribution. And then it still takes us back to the topic of conversation: sexual compatibility. How do we check? How can two people check if they are crazy? In they are crazy, like you said, that they are crazy couples, which of course, yeah, I kind of agree with you that people have different orientations. So how do we navigate those lines? How do we check who is crazy and who is not?
People who are crazy do not follow all these rules. They don't follow it till after marriage. People who are crazy, once they meet themselves, then go knock. They will find out before they marry.
Okay, hello? So here's the question. Here is something I am thinking. Unashamed Conversation has, like I said earlier, final authority is the Bible, right? So is it possible that because of the history people have of not being able to not have sex in the first place, because the reason why you have comparison is you have to compare between, you can't compare in isolation. You have to compare between A and B. You have to compare between John and Chukwuma. You have to compare between Chinedu and Adamu. If you didn't have sex in the first place, will you have any of these issues that we have talked about? If we have two people that haven't had sex and they come together, would it not be a better opportunity for them to learn their temperaments and basically grow up in learning? But then, because people come from different environments, people come from different ideologies and have had different experiences, do you not think that it adds to the problem of sexual compatibility? Take, for instance, if a young man that is quite experienced meets a young lady that is not so experienced, do you see that there will be a kind of mismatch? But if both of them come from the same level of infancy, do you think they have a better chance at growing better sexual compatibility over the years or over time? Yeah, Joy, what would you be your own reaction about that?
Come again. That question was directed to me, right? My network seems to be. Yeah, please come again.
Yeah, so I was saying that David Jones made a very important point about knowing themselves when they meet themselves. And then I'm saying that if we think about it, that now, because people have had experiences, so they have a frame of reference to compare. So there's a comparison. You can't compare in isolation. You can only compare Chinedu and Adamu, Risikat and Monica. But there has to be, for you to have a comparison, it means that there has to be more than one. So if both couples, a couple, a man and a woman, come from the same level of infancy, from the same level of non-experience, and they're meeting themselves for the first time, do you think they have a better chance of going in intimacy, in compatibility, learning their temperaments, as against a case where one person is more experienced than the other, or even both of them are equally experienced, but because they've had different experiences, which one do you think will have a chance of having more fulfilled sexual life?
I think it's the couple that come from like the same background, the same experience, the same frame of reference rather. But for me, in all this, whether from different backgrounds or the same backgrounds, I just think communication is very, very, very important. Like you cannot do this without communicating. A lot of people fall into this incompatibility, this trap of let me put it, because they don't talk about it. They don't talk about their expectations. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you communicate what your desires are, and I'm talking outside of sex now, if you communicate, it would help in a great way to foster compatibility. I hope I've answered that question. Communication for me is key. In any scenario you paint, communication, you have to be honest with each other is key. And I'm really, really interested in Messi Michael's testimony before we round off. Can Messi talk about his testimony?
Messi's hand is not up, but I think Pretty Terry's hand is up. Pretty Terry, is your hand up?
My hand is up.
Okay, let's have you, and then after that, let's hear Messi Michael's testimony. Pretty Terry, you have the floor.
Okay, so I'll say this based off my experience. Most times when it comes to compatibility, some people, based on their experiences, they think they have acquired over the years. I'm talking about their sexual performances, that ended up abstaining from sex after a period of while. Still feel they have that drive inside of them. They do not know, and they use those things to brag, or they use those things to talk about, to talk when they're having conversations with their futuristic spouse. And they'll be like, oh, okay, I know this is how I am sexually, this is how you are sexually. But when you're not getting to the marriage, you see a lot of lapses, you see a lot of loopholes. Were they not what they said they were? 100% they were. But now they are not what they said they were. So you have to now end up coping with what you have. Did you guys communicate properly? Yes. Did you do your research, or did you check? Did you go to the hospital to check? Yes. But now you are in the marriage and there are lapses. So what do? You've tried medically, there's supposedly no way to fix it. So that's where the word that comes at your marriage vows, for better, for worse, comes to play. So you have to endure that for as long as you both live. And how many couples can endure that? Sorry, I'm not yet home, so I'm out. So I'm not yet home. So how many couples can endure that? The women have chances of enduring sexual starvation or not getting orgasm or whatever, but men cannot handle it. To a large extent, a lot of men cannot put up with it. So if the table turns around and it is the man that has to endure, how many men can endure? How many men can endure if their wives are not sexually compatible? How many of them can stick to their vows and be faithful to their spouse and say, okay, it's our ride or die, we'll stay here? How many men can do that? But when it comes to it being the other way around, the women are made to sacrifice and stay put and enjoy whatever comes out of it. Same thing with those that travel outside the country. Why would you even want to travel and leave your spouse? That's you exposing them to temptation. You want to travel outside the country, then go with your wife. If you cannot go with your wife, then don't travel. Yes, we understand that we need greener pasture, but that is you causing havoc. And that's where this addiction comes in, masturbation comes in, a lot of loopholes come into the marriage, and then the marriage collapses and they blame the woman. That she cannot hold herself, she does not have self-control. Who wants to eat good food and be starved of eating for 2 years? Be starved of eating for 3 years? Be starved of eating for 4 years? Then why did you marry them? You put them into a trap, or you put them into a cell box and expect them to understand. The flesh is very powerful. That's why they say we keep fasting, we keep praying, but it's very powerful. Even Christ knew, and that's why I feel he did not get married. So I leave the floor back for you all to talk about the questions I just raised. There are a lot of things. Even Apostle Paul said they didn't get married. They understand the crisis of marriage. Marriage is not for the weak. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Thank you, Pretty Terry. The way time flies on Unashamed Conversations is amazing. Before you know what's happening, it's 9:30 already, and it's supposed to be an hour program. But then we are happy that it's engaging, and I hope you are learning a lot. We'll probably take 2 more questions and the reactions before we call it a wrap, because it's at our 30 minutes already, and yeah. So okay, I see David Jones. David, is it only David Jones that is here? A lot of people are here and I've not heard their voices. Caleb also is here. Andy is here.
Good evening, everybody.
Oh, Kate is here.
Good evening.
Yeah, a lot of Mary Jane, Mercy, Nemix, a lot of people. Vivian is here. So yeah, reactions. Okay, David Jones.
All right. Thank you. Responding to her.
David Jones, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Responding to her question, talking about traveling out, I want to agree. I want to believe that before any man or woman travels out, to stay for years apart, they have to sit down and discuss it. I don't know if it's a personal experience with you, but it sounds as if it's something that's already happened. Like let's know what happened to you.
David Jones, you're not being nice. Stop laughing. You're not being nice. These are Unashamed Conversations. Apologize.
No, I'm just cracking a joke, but I'm sorry. I don't mean that way. Trust me, I don't.
Thank you. Your sins are forgiven.
I apologize. No, that's not how I meant it. Sorry. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that before a man or a woman leaves their spouse, I'm sure they will sit down and discuss it. I'm going away. I'll be staying for 3 years or 4 years. In that case, I'm sure they will brace themselves. That's where self-control comes in now. There's an understanding. I feel like it's only a problem if it's not discussed, if you know what I mean. There shouldn't be room for cheating whatsoever. You understand? If 2 people come together and agree to say, okay, my husband, I want to travel to go and do this thing for 3 years. I go deal, you go deal. How we go do the matter? You understand? That way, I feel like at least you don't brace yourself, say, okay, for 3 years, I feel no see this babe, or I feel no see this guy. So that's a sacrifice that comes, with marriage. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much. I may need to be leaving soon, but I will just make a few comments about how the conversations have gone, in the last few moments. So basically, permit me to digress a bit to make comments on the issue of masturbation from what some of the speakers have talked about. I believe that just like, habits form very, very quickly, and it's so easy for you to start something. The beginning of something starts so easily and everything seems to be fine. You seem to be in control. You seem to be able to regulate things. Nothing is getting out of hand, just like somebody drinking alcohol or abusing hard drugs or doing Indian hemp. It seems all harmless at the beginning. It seems like I'm in charge. I know how many bottles I drink. I don't go beyond this. But we should keep in mind that addiction does not announce itself. It just creeps in. You just find out that you've gone too far before you know it. So it's almost impossible, just like other forms of addiction, for you to say that masturbation is something that can be done moderately. You cannot say it can be done moderately because you are not going to be in control of this. And by the time it gets out of hand, you are not even going to realize it because it just happens. And you just see that you have already gone round the bend. Before you actually know, wow, you're masturbating almost 10 times a day. It's affecting your routine activities. You are isolating yourself all the time, and without doing it, it's almost like a compulsive thing. If you don't do it, it looks like something is missing in your life every day. So it's possible to get to that point for something that seemingly started like a harmless situation. Then also, I wanted to raise the fact that
when you're masturbating and you think in your head, you are only, or in your mind, you're only seeing your spouse, that is really, really something that we should know that the human mind is complicated. You know, the human mind is complex. It is not automated. You can't say switch to spouse and let it be only on spouse, especially when your spouse is not around. You know, the mind is not like that. The human mind has many neural pathways, many neural networks. There's neuroplasticity. It is one of the most complicated things to understand, the human mind. So you cannot now say that you are fixated on just one thing or on one person, and that is how it is all the time. You know, the human mind wanders. Even when we say we pray, even as Christians, when you close your eyes in the place of prayer, you find your mind still traveling far and wide. You have to bring it back. You have to bring it back to where it's supposed to be, what the focus is, and you remind yourself that you are in the place of prayer. Because anxiety sets in, you're thinking of work, you're thinking of traffic and all that. So our minds are, they are so complicated to the point that we can't always say, oh, it's my spouse only that I'm focused on when I'm doing this. So that's just for us to know that, the issue of masturbation is something that can become addictive. You can easily get out of control of it, and then you may not always be thinking about your spouse, because it's only a matter of time before you see your mind moving in different directions. And then for people who are traveling, yes, there is mutual agreement, prior to their trip and all that. And, there's nothing like, they were not aware they are going to go away for this long. It's not that the other person absconded. They both agreed that, look, you are going to be away for a particular length of time. So, and that comes with consequences. So before you make any major arrangements or any change in your life, you count the cost. And you see that it's something that is sustainable and it's something that you can maintain. Otherwise, of course, the detrimental consequence of having a breakup is inevitable. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. You literally put the conversation to rest, but then we're still having these conversations and we are looking at rounding up very soon, say by 9:50. Time flies. And Mercy Michael, are you ready for your testimony before we take Vivian Nze? Mercy, are you ready?
I'd rather you take Vivian, because honestly, I do not have the short versions or abridged versions of my testimonies or confessions. We might be here till 10:30. Let's take Vivian.
Okay.
Just shorten the thing up, how I can rush through it, and then we'll call it a day today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank Vivian. Vivian, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Good evening. Or should I also add good afternoon, good morning, depending on wherever you are listening to me from. Okay, so well done, everyone. I must confess, I have learned a whole lot. I know I didn't come in on time, but I must say a big thank you to that Dr. Charles. I hope he's still here. The last speaker, because my question really,
Charles.
Yes, Dr. Charles, thank you. I really want to ask.
Dr. Charles is still here.
He's still there, right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Well done, sir. Okay, so I have two people's experiences that I want to, but one is someone that is very close to me. Although they are no longer in Nigeria, but I knew the ordeal, I know what she went through. Yes, like you said, there must be an agreement when a husband or a wife has to go away for a period. In this case, yes, they planned it, but I knew what she went through. And at a point, she and the husband had to resort to that thing they call video, there's a name there, whatever, video love making or what?
Video sex.
No, but
video sex.
As far as you can call it anything, for me, it is full-blown masturbation. And I asked her, you are already taken, you are already there, you are masturbating. Okay, so when he's not there, when your husband is not available, how do you control it? Especially what Dr. Charles was saying. So at some point, I listened to a whole lot of the speakers earlier, even before Dr. Charles's thoughts. I'd like to now ask for couples. I know I'm not yet there, but I hope to I hope to be there very soon. And look, me being very clinging, I do not actually foresee that kind of a scenario where my husband will be away. Kilo day, I go tie your leg, I go tie your buckle, we'll go together. Do you understand? Because based on my friend's story, that is not a small matter. It's not a small thing to go through. She had to go through that for a year plus before she joined her husband. So at this point, sir, my question is, when you would have to resort to masturbating with your husband over the phone, where do we place it? Especially as we are Christians, as we are, daughters and sons of God. Where do we place it, please? And to what extent? I know I have heard, okay, there must be moderation. There was the fair man that spoke about moderation and all of that, and tilted the talk as though masturbation is not a sin. Even though the Bible is not loud on it, I do not think it is something that we should be, or people that are engaging into, whether they are married or not, should be very comfortable with. Because the addictive part is something you cannot imagine. Especially I have had a friend who told me sometime that he would naturally take a lady's picture. And it doesn't stop there. He would just see someone that he likes and he will place the photograph and be masturbating. What kind of lifestyle is that? I think it goes beyond seeking pleasure. It goes beyond, being somehow, I think it could be demonic. Because I'm sorry if I'm going overboard, but because you, like rightly as Dr. Charles said, at some point you may not be imagining, as my friend would tell me, okay, so she would just imagine her husband is with her and all of that. And I said, look, this is draining you. This is not you. Do you understand? So where do we place it? Does it now become, as children of God, does it now become okay when you would have to resort to such, especially when your husband is away and you're legally married? Thank you.
Dr. Charles, you have the floor.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So talking as children of God now, and I'm sorry, after answering this question, I may need to leave. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So as children of God, from the context of Christianity, you reading the scriptures, and the Bible says you should fix your thoughts on things that are lovely, things that are of good report, things that are holy. There's a reason why those aspects of the scriptures are there, because the scripture understands that your mind and heart is powerful, and it is something that can easily get out of control. And there is nobody that can beat his chest and say, I am in control of my thoughts 100%. There are some thoughts that sometimes even psychologists will tell you, some of these thoughts are like thoughts that somebody puts into your mind. You're wondering, did I think that? Was that really from me? But yes, it was from your mind, because that's where all sorts of suggestions come from. That's when people think, oh, this thing looks nice. I think I can steal it. Oh, that thing looks good. I think I can, just take it away and nobody would notice. All these suggestions come to you. That is why the Bible says that you should transform your mind and your mind should be renewed, because it knows that the normal carnal mind is just everywhere and can practically think of anything. And anything it thinks of, it wants to act out. So basically, you can see now that as children of God, if you give the devil just one foothold, he's just going to grab the whole thing. And before you know it, the devil is so good in making you lose control so quickly. And before you know it, you're entangled in an addiction that you would find it very difficult to break from. And before you know it, even that marriage that you think you're trying to, protect by doing mutual masturbation with your spouse, you will find out that behavior alone can even ruin that good relationship. So it's very necessary for us to know that, just like the Bible also said, most of the good advice that we have are from, eternal wisdom, ancient wisdom in the Bible. Like one that says, don't be unequally yoked to unbelievers. So it lays to rest this compatibility issue. The Bible has already told you that you should look for like minds. That's what it's telling you. You should look for like minds when you're trying to even set up a family or you're trying to, get married. You shouldn't have too much disparity between you and your spouse to be. Because the advice that the Word of God gives is don't be unequally yoked to unbelievers. It's not because the Bible is bigoted and doesn't like unbelievers. It's because the Bible knows that you have to marry somebody who shares your values, who thinks like you, who prioritizes things that you prioritize, and whose mind is focused on the commandments of God, like your own mind is focused on the commandments of God. That is how you can form a good unit. But if you are looking for people who, you are with them for various reasons, either because they are doing well financially or because they are good looking or because they are smart, you would run into problems. So basically, the fundamentals of faith, now from the Christian perspective, it is so key. Like the whole essence of this program, pointing to the Bible as the final authority, is that whatever the scripture says is what we should abide by, because that is what would, stand the test of time, and that is what would keep you in a lasting and fulfilling marriage. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. And it is only fair that
I'm sorry.
Mr.
I'm
Unique.
very sorry, sir.
Hold on.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah.
He never really answered my question. Dr. Charles didn't answer my question. My question was directly
in one line. What's
in
your
one
question?
line. In one line.
Yeah.
So as Christians, husband is a woman, and I am the wifey, and I am somewhere else. Husband is not with me for a year plus. Are you or are you not saying if we have to resort to engage into video sex, it is wrong? What would you say about that, sir?
Exactly what I just said. So I am saying that if you are Christians and you abide by your faith and you practice your faith, there's a difference between people that call themselves Christians and people that are actually practicing Christians. So we need to really be sure of where we stand. So if you are a practicing Christian that accepts the commandments of God as the final verdict, you would know that if you have renewed your mind and you have been transformed, I'm talking of both parties now, not just one person, you are treading on dangerous grounds if you follow that path. Because like I said, you are still flesh and blood, you are still human, and you are prone to different temptations. So because this situation is something that it's not written in stone. You can't say, I'm always focused on my husband. Your mind travels, you are human. Before you're a Christian, you're a human first and foremost. Then secondly, like we said, addiction does not announce itself. It just happens. Before you're already there. People that smoke Indian hemp and end up in a psychiatric hospital, they never thought they were going to end up there. They just thought it was something that they would just use to ease themselves, relax and all that. They never knew when they crossed the line. So it will be a dangerous path, for a real Christian. Now, I'm emphasizing the real practicing Christian to practice that, because it's only a matter of time before everything crumbles. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles. And we have to go, sadly, we have to go. Always remember to follow us on our social media handles on Facebook. You can find us at More Light Pictures on Facebook. On Instagram, you can find us at More Light_Ministry. On TikTok, it is at More Light Ministry. And on Twitter, that has now become X, it is at More Light_MIN. Yes, please like our Facebook pages, follow us, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is at More Light Ministries. We are rounding up now, but it will not be fair not to take closing remarks from Mr. Unique. Mr. Unique, in less than 1 minute, your final thoughts.
Yeah, for me, I would beg to differ with Dr. Charles, because if we are to go by the Bible, we should not go by assumptions. We should not go things that have been spoke about by our pastors without giving us text of scriptures. Hey, First Corinthians this says this. There's nowhere, I'll repeat it, there's nowhere in the Bible where it says masturbation is wrong. Anything that couples do to keep their marriage sexually, there's nothing wrong in that. I could even go further, even if it's to even use sex toys, to enhance their sex life on the bed. There is no sin in that. Then secondly, I would want to say sexual compatibility is not really a problem in marriage, provided spouse can communicate properly and appropriately or communicate more often. Leading causes of divorce are lack of communication in marriage, infidelity, finances. Sexual compatibility does not even come first 5 in leading causes of marriage. These are issues that can be talked over, if you have good communication. Yes, I have this weakness. Yes, I have that weakness. Where do we come together? But anything done on the bed for spouse, let's remove the sin factor out of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I will be handing over to Joy Ogbekene to round off the show. And from me, thank you so much for your time. It's been an interesting conversation. Join us same time next week, but then over to Joy for her closing remarks.
So thank you everyone for coming. It's been a wonderful time. It's been enlightening. It's been engaging. Thank you all so much. And we'll see next time on Unashamed Conversations. Please don't forget to it can be found on our Facebook, on all our social media pages, actually. And before I leave, I want to leave with this this word of exhortation. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are honest, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think of these things. So if masturbation is going on, are we thinking of pure and just things? That's just an aside anyways, but think on these things. Thank you all so much. Like I said, the Odogu skits are there, and you can send Odogu a message, an email on Liberation Time with Odogu if you have any challenges or you have anything you'd like addressed. Thank you all so much for coming, and we'll see you again on the next episode of Unashamed Conversations. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, Doctor.
Bye, everyone.